Welcome. Thank you for joining us here tonight and studying the situation, if that's the case. My name is Kirsten Ayers, and I'm going to be moderating this evening. Joining me tonight are Joshua Hagmart, he's the Water Resources Manager, and Madeline Ward, who is our local conservation guru. So if you have conservation questions, I'm looking in this area. This is your girl. Tonight we're going to go through a number of different topics for everyone. And we're going to start with the drought and give everybody a little status on where we are, how we got here, what's going on with our water status. Then we're going to talk about the Stage 3 timeline and what that means in terms of planning and next steps. We're going to talk a little bit about desalination and then how to pay for that. And we're going to talk at the end about conservation. And then when we're finished with that, we're going to open it up to question and answer. So please hold your questions until the end of the meeting, and then we'll get to all of those as we progress. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joshua.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, again, for coming tonight. Welcome, Santa Barbara High School. Is that what I understand? Excellent. Thanks for coming out. So I've been giving presentations now every month since January of 2014, specifically on our status of the current drought. And this evening's meeting was to kind of offer an opportunity to have a dialogue about where we are and get some input on where we're headed. Just to kind of start off, I want to set the stage. This is Lake Oroville, which is the second largest reservoir in California. It holds just a little over 3.5 million acre feet. And this was in 2011. This was the last time that Lake Cachuma was full. It now currently looks something like this, and kind of sets the stage for the significance of this drought, not only here in California or here in Santa Barbara, but also statewide. Another picture you guys may all be more familiar with is Cachuma and its dwindling status. So obviously this isn't the first drought that the city has seen. In 1987 to 91, the city experienced a significant drought here that really helped shape our approach to water going forward. It was pretty groundbreaking, and at that time we saw a need for 40 to 50% reduction in water use, and there was a lot of fear in the community that we might run out of water. The last 3 years have been the driest on record, which says a lot for the 100 years of records we have been keeping for this area. In February, in December, NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, came out with prediction for the next 3 months, our wettest months in 2014, to be below average rainfall. It certainly was a game changer, and because of it, we moved fairly quickly to start implementing our water shortage contingency plan. In February, we declared a Stage 1 and followed up in May with that Stage 2. So there are a lot of information out there. I'm sure you've been on the web looking, and this is one piece of information that's out there, and it's just predicting, looking forward the next 6 months at the severity of the drought, and they're not expecting it to change. We do have a little bit more time in this winter. We are hoping to get some additional rainfall that may help ease our concerns, but they're not predicting any significant changes. We're looking at staying at the highest level of drought intensity, which is exceptional. So the city's water sources, back in the 80s, we were primarily a surface water dependent community. We relied heavily on Lake Cachuma and Gibraltar, and the city sits over a modest groundwater basin that does provide some regular production. However, today, since then, we've really started to develop and diversify our portfolio, so we weren't so dependent on those two main surface water sources. We still rely heavily on Cachuma. It is a good source initially for the first couple years, but we do have other sources that come in. The city has developed and has one of the oldest recycled water systems in the state, which was built in the late 80s. Desal, which has always been a part of the city's water supply plan since the early 90s. We continue to have Gibraltar and Mission Tunnel. Conservation program. After the last drought, we really invested heavily in a conservation program, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that later, but it has yielded significant results, and we continue to see that as a source of supply for the city. State Water Project. Since the last drought, we have become a State Water Project member, and we have a connection to being able to deliver water from Lake Oroville or other parts of the state, and being able to exchange water with other agencies who may have a surplus of water. And then, of course, our local groundwater. This graphic here just kind of shows you, and I think it's in one of the handouts, just the scope of our water system. The State Water Project pipeline actually comes into Lake Cachuma and dumps in right at the dam. Tecolote Tunnel is the connection that brings us our lake water and state water. We also have Mission Tunnel over here that's connected to Gibraltar. So as you can see, we get a significant portion of our water comes through two tunnels. That water eventually ends up in Laurel Reservoir, which is up near the Hasacita Trailhead, and goes into our water treatment plant, where it's distributed not only to the city of Santa Barbara, but we also treat the water for Montecito and Carpinteria. We do have about less than a dozen groundwater wells in two significant basins here in the city, and our wastewater treatment plant, where our recycled water system, our treatment system starts. And then we have the Charles Meyer Desalination Facility, which I'll be talking about a little more later. Cachuma, current level is at 28%. We have reduced our, all the members taking from Cachuma have reduced their allocations this year to help extend the lake out as long as we can. Gibraltar is currently 21%. And I think what's kind of significant here to take a look at is Cachuma has a capacity of around 200,000 acre feet. Gibraltar has a capacity of about 5,000 acre feet. So there's roughly 40 Gibraltars inside of Cachuma. So Cachuma is a very small supply, but it does belong and is owned by the city of Santa Barbara. State Water, we are a state water contractors, are a member, as I mentioned. And so far they are predicting we'll receive 15% of our normal state allocation, which is, I'll go into a little later, is just over 250 acre feet. And then we have two groundwater basins, the Foothill and Downtown Basin. Supplemental supplies. So during drought times, we'll be increasing our groundwater pumping. That's one of the additional supplies we bring online. We will be importing banked and purchased water. The city has been participating in groundwater banking in Kern County and other areas where we put in 3 gallons with the agreement that we'll pull out 1 gallon when we need it later. So during years when we have plenty of rain, plenty of water running around, we will bank it with them and then do a withdrawal. And so that's one additional supply we bring it on. The other one is purchased water. We've been also pursuing and purchasing water from outside the area and having it imported. The limitation to that is the capacity of the pipeline, but this has been really critical to helping us meet our water supply needs. Also through demand reductions. The rates that went into effect July 1st of 2014 have been very effective. We've seen tremendous conservation from this community, and something we should be all proud of. I mean, when I go in and discuss with other general managers and other water agencies, the way Santa Barbara has responded to this drought has been impressive, and I'm very proud of what we've done so far. Regulations have a big part of that, bringing awareness to it. We will be looking at possibly different rates and regulations, as you know, if this drought continues. And desalination, we've had it as part of our water supply plan. It is our supply of last resort, but it is needless to say, a supply locally that we control and we know we can meet in the health and safety needs of this community. So this here is our water supply plan, and it's starting back in 2011 when the reservoir filled. We rely heavily on our surface water initially because that's our most affordable and cheapest water, and it frees up space in case it rains again, and we're able to recharge that. However, as we've gotten into 2014, we've relied more on state water purchases, and you'll notice how we quickly diminishing our surface water, relying more on groundwater, recycled water, and then if the drought continues, we'll be pulling on desalination. The significance here is even with conservation at 20%, we are still recognizing a significant shortage in 2017, even with desal. Now, having said that, we have several ideas for addressing that shortage, but at this point, we haven't settled on one. One is obviously expanding the size of the desal facility. Other is if we're able to buy supplemental water or purchase water. It's difficult to say at this point whether there'll be water to purchase if the drought continues. There's also additional regulations that we could look at doing, moratoriums on watering of lawns to try and reduce that shortage. So we'll be looking at all those different opportunities. So this graphic here kind of illustrates some of the conservation we've seen. So the stage 2 drought was declared in May. The rates took effect July 1. And from that, we've seen in this light green line here, this is actual water usage. This right here is a normalized water usage. So this is what we'd expect in an average year. This dark green line is the drought target. That's what we were hoping to achieve. That's the 20%. And so what we've actually seen is a 23% reduction in water usage since July. We get a lot of questions about who should be conserving. I get a lot of emails saying it's all of the irrigation customers, they're the problem, or it's all the ag customers, or it's always somebody else's fault. But what I wanted to use in this graphic was to kind of illustrate where the bulk of the water is used. The bulk of the water is used in single-family residential water usage. They make up roughly almost half of the water usages in that area. And so it starts with the average resident, and you can see the next chunk of water is actually in our multifamily residential. And then we get into commercial and industrial, which as you can see is a small chunk. And then you start to get down into irrigation. This is recreation, commercial, residential, commercial irrigation, recreation, parks and schools, agriculture, and recycled water. And as you can see, certainly we're asking and we are seeing conservation from these areas, actually meeting the 20% goal. But you can see there's not a significant amount of water in that area. It's not a place to lay the blame. Everyone in this room has a part to play in helping to conserve, and so kind of keep the focus on that. So the city has a water shortage plan. We've, like I said, we've been planning since the last drought, and most recently was updated in 2011 to reflect our current supplies, our community, and how much water we use. And as part of addressing a water shortage, we rely heavily on what we call extraordinary conservation. It is what basically we've seen over the last 6 months where people have, gone to great lengths to reduce their water usage. Not something we would expect or ask the community to do during a normal time, but certainly understanding that we are in a unique time. And then part of that is we've been our use of the word drought. It's not one of those words we want to throw around all the time, because living in an arid climate like this, we continually have short dry cycles. And so using the word drought is significant because when we do use it, we want people to respond to it. We have 3 stages that we define in our water shortage plan, stage 1, stage 2, and our highest level of stage 3 drought emergency, which we are contemplating for May. So here's a little timeline. As I'd mentioned, February, we declared a stage 1, stage 2 in May. We're currently now coming up on March 2015. We're going to be discussing with the community regulations on water usage. We'll be talking with Water Commission and City Council. We'll be looking for input on what those policies should look like. We'll be having the rate hearings, as you guys all know here. On March 10th will be an opportunity to talk about the rates that are currently being considered for adoption. And on March 5th, we'll actually be receiving the proposals from the 3 contractors who are pursuing reactivation of our desal facility. So April, we'll be back to Water Commission and Council to talk about enforcement. Unlike stage 1 and stage 2, stage 3 is our highest level, and in a state of emergency, we need to do a little bit more proactive enforcement. There will be some type of patrols, and that's what we're going to be exploring with the Council and Water Commission, and of course with the community input on what level of enforcement we want to see with our our regulations. May, we're looking tentatively at a stage 3 drought declaration, and that would be if situation doesn't improve over the next month and a half. And then June is the general timeline right now. If things don't improve, that we would consider award of the desal facility project, which will take about 15 months to bring online. The rates would take effect July 1st and would reflect basically whatever comes out of the situation here. What we've noticed, all of you, has been the rates that we presume will be the highest rates that we can actually implement on July 1st. And so we hope to plan for the worst and see something better than that. That's what we're looking at. So a little bit about the desalination facility. It was built in 91 and completed in 92, or started in 91 and finished in 92. It was only operated for a few months. We received some significant rainfall. It was a regional facility at the time. Goleta and Montecito were partners in that facility. And it was decided that they no longer wanted to operate it, and they put it in a standby mode at that time. And so for several years, they were considering what to do, but ultimately a policy decision was made to go ahead and put it in long-term storage, which meant selling off some of the components that don't hold up to storage. And some of those were like the membranes and some other pieces of equipment. The screens and pumps that were in the ocean for the intake were all brought on shore, and we currently have those on shore. And so that was basically what occurred back then, and we're now looking to reactivate it. The facility is located right across the street from our wastewater treatment plant over on Yananali. So the desal timeline, as I mentioned, the proposals are due in March, council to consider in June. July, basically the contractor would start design and construction, and it would be online by fall of 2016. So the rate study, we hired in 2013. The city actually completed a pretty extensive rate study that looked at all of our costs and went through our operating and capital costs and brought it all back and helped build a model of our rates that we could use. That has been kind of the springboard that has helped us to develop the rates needed to support the desalination plant. The distribution of costs is kind of challenging, and sometimes I can imagine from the public it's somewhat frustrating. It's driven by Proposition 218, which kind of restricts how costs must reflect the cost of service. I can't overcharge for services, and we aren't really allowed to undercharge. It must recover the cost of operating the facility, and so that's a big indicator and how we distribute the costs. We're not allowed to, as much as you would probably like to see, the Tier 1 don't pay anything and Tier 3 pays everything. That Prop 218 won't allow for that either. So it's the costs that are being attributed to each one of the tiers and each one of the classifications of water use. It reflects the priority that has been laid out by the council, but also the regulations laid out in Prop 218. You also notice in our regulations or in our water rates, we pursue to incentivize water conservation. We feel like we have one of the most inclined rate structures on the South Coast. We feel that has led to a more stable water rate. It really incentivizes those who conserve, and I think has really benefited this community thus far. I think it's important to note at this point, our water use today, I've seen all kinds of information in Ed Hat, but our water use going into this drought was 20% less than it was during the mid-'80s. So this community has significantly reduced its water use from the 80s to today, or going into this drought by 20%. And a big part of that, that includes growth, a modest growth. We added like 5,000 residents to our community over those 25 years or so. It includes roughly 5 million tourists that come to Santa Barbara every year. So there's a lot that goes into that, and this community has still put out some significant numbers when it comes to conservation. So we're not joking around. We have a very strong conservation program here, And in addition to that, since we have declared the drought, we've gotten an additional 23% conservation. So this community has gone a long ways to reduce its water usage and should be very proud of themselves on that. So a little bit about the cost of the desal. So the first phase, and we hope will be the only phase that we have to do if we have to reactivate it, is for a capacity of 3,000 acre feet. It's approximately 20% of the city's normal water usage. The cost, as has been noticed in the rates, is at $40 million. We hope it will come in somewhere between $30 and $40 million, but at this point we don't know that yet. We received input from Water Commission and Council, who suggested not dragging out the repayment, but having a 10-year payback. Particularly, what was a driver on that is the interest rates. That's the current bond rate right now is 6%. We are pursuing state funding or state loan for it, which could be less than 2%. Now, that's one of those we hope comes through, and we'll certainly pass along that savings in the rates. The other part is which yields about $5.3 million per year is what the debt service would be on that loan. Now, more significant though is the actual operation cost, which is $5.2 million. Now, those costs, and I'll probably state it again later, those costs are the operating costs will only be paid by Tier 2 and Tier 3 users. Tier 1 users will not be paying for any production operations of the desal facility. They will be paying for a portion of the capital costs, but that has to do with basically our rate structure, and we don't have the ability to kind of, not share those costs with the Tier 1 users. The $2.5 million operating costs, that would be in a standby mode. We are considering a smaller production out of the facility to keep it online and keep it more available to this community. This is something that the technology has improved on, and so this option really wasn't available in the 90s. So what are we looking at? Low users, someone using approximately 4 HCF a month. Their current rate would be somewhere around $27.34 a month. We're looking at $40.29, approximately a $13 increase. Average was... This is the average before the drought of this 12 HCF. They had a water bill of $78.46, and now looking at $108.37. And then a high user, 32 HCF, is looking at $120 increase. Now, this is for a 5/8-inch meter and the fixed charges associated with that. I didn't go into a lot of information, but I'm open to questions afterwards. We have our handout that was mailed out. If there's more questions. Now, what does that put us in context? Currently, the proposed rates would push the city up above all of the other water agencies in our area. But these other water agencies are all considering major increases to their rates. So when all is said and done, I would expect the city to be in the middle of the pack or below. As you can see, going into this drought, the city had one of the most competitive rates available to our average users and low users. Let's save together. So I'm going to turn it over to Madeline Ward.
Thank you. So following the last major drought, the city developed a really comprehensive conservation program, and our community has responded with indoor efficiency as well as efficiency outside in terms of irrigation and landscaping. And I want to spend a few minutes to walk you through some of the programs that we have available to our customers. So when you take a look at an average home water use, as you'll see, quite a bit of it is spent outside. We estimate about 50 to 60% of an average home water use is outside in the landscape for watering plants. Another area we like to target is leaks, of course. Leaks can be both indoor and out. And a major focus of our programs is outdoor water efficiency and how people can take a look at their gardens, take a look at what they're watering and how they're watering it and how they can improve on that. One of our most popular programs is called the Water Checkup. This is a free service that's available to all of our water customers. And this entails a city staff person coming out to your home or your business or your apartment complex, and taking a look at how water is used on your site. It can be an indoor water checkup or an outdoor water checkup. Some people call us because they need a little bit of extra help understanding their irrigation system or their irrigation controller. And we can walk you through different steps you can take to save water both indoor and out, and also provide information on all of our rebates and programs that we have going on. So I'll mention some of our most popular programs, and these are all available to our city water customers. We have a landscape rebate for replacing high water using plants and irrigation systems. We also have a $150 rebate for high-efficiency washing machines to replace an older, inefficient model. We have a $300 rebate on pool covers to reduce evaporation. We have a free sprinkler nozzle program, which are high-efficiency rotating nozzles. We also pay for the delivery of the county's mulch to our water customers twice per year to also reduce evaporation. That's a great program. And during the winter, we give out free rain shutoff sensors during our water checkup appointments. As well, we have information on our website. We have a lot of do-it-yourselfers here in Santa Barbara, so we're trying to provide resources for those that want to just gather the information and take a look at what they can do inside their own home. So we have our weekly watering percent adjust, which is posted every single week. We also put it on Twitter, if anyone's on Twitter. And this lets you know the percentage to adjust your sprinkler timer to each week so that your plants are being watered efficiently and water is not being wasted. We also have a watering calculator to determine how much to water your plants based on soil type and what type of plant you're watering. We also have plenty of how-to videos on our YouTube channel, how to read your water meter, how to check for leaks in sprinklers and drip systems, and how to repair toilet leaks that you might find, and many more. We're creating them every month. We also have a really popular interactive gardening website that has virtual garden tours of local gardens, and it also has a searchable plant database of over 1,000 water-wise plants. So if some people don't know where to start, let's say they had a lawn, they want to move to something that's more water-wise, this is a great place to start. It shows you the wide variety of plants that we have that do well here in Santa Barbara and that also save a lot of water. So for all of these programs, I encourage you to go to our website, which is santabarbaraca.gov/waterwise. There's plenty of information on our conservation programs there, as well as the drought. And they can also call 564-5460.